I started watching this the other day, and I wanted to get all the way through it before I did a video on it. So this is Brian Tyler Cohen talking to Mehdi Hasan, and they're talking about left and right politics, left and right in the media. And so I just wanted to go over how they view left and right versus how I view left and right.
I want to talk a little bit about the media right now. So you run an independent media company. What do you think is the state of independent media on the left right now?
I mean, we're doing well, but as a big picture, it's not great compared to the right. One of the reasons, Brian, and you know this because you and I talked earlier in the year, one of the reasons I set up Zateo back in February, March, April, was because I left MSNBC and I saw there was this gap in the market. The people on the right, whether it's your Tucker Carlson, whether it's your Megyn Kelly, whether it's your Barry Weiss, Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, are monetizing their right-wing outrage politics and grievance mongering and are building huge audiences online, paying audiences online with subscription business models. And I was looking around at the left and think no one's really doing it on the left. You've had huge success on YouTube. You're cross.
And so Brian Tyler Cohen is not on the left. He is a liberal, not a leftist, a total Democrat.
3 million subscribers, congratulations, but you're not running a subscription business. And it hasn't, and we know that Cenk and the Young Turks have been on YouTube for a while.
His name is Cenk. How can you, I don't understand how people who've talked to this man, I've never even talked to Cenk Uygur and I can say his name. His name is Cenk.
And there's been attempts to do things on the left and just narrowing down to the subscription
model. Now the TYT on that point, they're moving right, talking about they're moving right. So again, they're not really left media anymore.
No one had really tried to do a subscription model. We've tried to do it. I think we're doing a good job. We just crossed 300,000 subscribers globally in 8 months. We're very pleased with that.
And when it came down to it, he was pushing for genocide, right? So he's not of the left either. If you're really of the left, you have certain morals. You cannot let a genocide happen. Like, I mean, if you can't stop it, obviously we let it happen. I'm letting a genocide happen. I can't stop it, but you would not vote for it. You could never vote for the people that you know are going to commit genocide, right? So if we have if anybody's actually on the left and a strong left, get them to vote, right? And then we all vote for the Green Party, the Libertarian Party. Nobody on the left is going to vote for a Republican or a Democrat, especially at a time when Israel is attacking Gaza like they are. When it was just a time of, concentration camp, you kind of look the other way. Now that it's a full-on attack and genocide, straight up, you can't vote for that and call yourself a leftist. That does not jive at all. It doesn't work. No.
That we're making some good money off subscriptions. We have over 40,000 paid subscribers. I saw that gap in the market from a purely commercial business point, but also.
So then, not to keep cutting them off, if you're a leftist and you know how to make money, what you would understand is that a lot of leftists aren't great at making money because that's not our focus. Our focus is people, right? And so it's hard for a lot of leftists to make money. And if you're a leftist that's good at making money and you know how to do this stuff, then you go out and you get a lot of other people. You get some leftist, other anchors or other just regular people, YouTubers, and you help them out. You set them up. You show them how to run the business and stuff like that. You go out there, you hit the ground and help other people. You got the money, you got the ability, right? That's the difference in left and right. Like right, go make it on your own. Find out. But that's even kind of a lie, because now the right, they're really big at going to get talent, right? And they push their talent and build their talent up. You got PragerU back in the day. Now you got Ben Shapiro with the Daily Wire, and there's a few other, right? So the left doesn't do that. We used to come together, and we used to try to come together, but then they kept killing us and stuff, and it's probably scary to come together when they kill us when we do. So, but, like all the Kyle Kalinskis, the leftist mafia, they need to help bring up people. They need to start running candidates and bringing candidates on, Green Party candidates. Democrats are not left. You're not talking about anything left.
So from an ideological point of view, why aren't more people doing this on the left? Given the left in the mainstream media is kind of non-existing. MSNBC, where I used to work, is not left-wing. People get annoyed when I point this out. It's not, right? It's kind of at best center-left. It's kind of at best centrist liberal. It's not supporting the kind of causes that the left cares about. And that's a problem. And the same with the New York Times, the same with the Washington Post. The conservatives have so successfully branded all mainstream media as liberal left that actually there hasn't been a real space for actual liberals and lefties to go, well, these are our offerings in an
Right, because
No, they're actual liberals. They're just not leftists. Liberals and leftists are not the same thing. They're very different. Liberals they're like center-right capitalists. Leftists are anti-capitalist. They're totally different. You can't be an anti-capitalist and a capitalist and be the same thing. It doesn't make any sense.
because they're so afraid of being branded as liberal that they have to overcompensate to prove that in fact they're not.
Yes. And that then follows through into independent media, because then you're like, well, why do we need all this independent media? You already have the New York Times and MSNBC. Like, no, they're not. Like, my politics, the Taylor's politics, very different to New York Times and MSNBC. Yeah. So I think, look, to answer your question, it's not in a great shape because financially the support hasn't been there.
But his politics out his mouth are different. But what he will support and vote for are the exact same. He's going to vote for the lesser evil most times, right? He's going to tell you to vote for the lesser evil most times rather than vote for the greater good. If we had all these people talking about their left wing, talking about they're going to vote for the greater good, we could get some results. But every time it comes down to it, even every 2 years, even if you watch these guys in the midterms, they might push up a couple people green, independents here and there, but they're still going to say, these are the most important seats. You got to vote for the lesser evil. You got to vote Democrat on this. You got to vote Democrat on that because it's just that seat is whatever so important type stuff. So it's not left.
Either from ordinary people being willing to put their hand in their pocket and say, I'm going to subscribe, I'm going to value the content that Brian does or Mehdi does or whoever else does. And also from the big investors, the big donors, the big money folks. I mean, it's a truism, but we got to point this out. Like, right-wing media is catering to wealthy people. So it's easy for them to raise money off of wealthy people, correct, right? Left-wing media is saying, hey, let's have some more regulation, a bit bigger government, higher taxes on the wealthy. That doesn't naturally attract a lot of people outside of the Soroses of this world. So it is an issue when it comes to funding. When it comes, I mean, we've been very lucky. I raised $4 million from kind of friends and family round, and from people, interested parties, small business people who wanted to support the mission. But I didn't go big. But people who do want to go big, it's much easier on the right. I mean, Ben Shapiro turns up and says to a fracking magnate in Texas, give me $4 million to launch, and that's how Daily Wire launches.
Totally. Well, okay, so that's the money perspective from the left-wing independent media. But what about Democratic politicians? Because there is an onus. I think the right has been really successful and really effective at getting their politicians, their elected officials, to lay hands on right-wing media so that they can then prop them up and allow those people to act as emissaries for the right-wing mission. We don't have, or we haven't had for a very, very long time, anything like that on the left, because I think the left, wrongly, to your point, for exactly the reason that we were talking about before, views mainstream media as their message distribution system. Notwithstanding the fact that mainstream media is bending over backwards to prove that it is not an arm of the Democratic Party in anywhere close to the same way that right-wing media is an arm of the Republican 100%. Party, exists to serve as...
That is total BS. And they're not even just an arm of the Democratic Party, they're an arm of the establishment part of the Democratic Party. When Bernie was running, they didn't even cover Bernie hardly, and they talked all that crazy mess about Bernie while he had all these huge crowds, and they backed Hillary right away, and they were pumping Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton back in 2016, and then Joe Biden, and all scared of Donald Trump in 2020. But they are just as sycophantic about the Democratic Party as Fox is about the Republican Party. That is just total slander. I don't know if slander is the word. That's a lie.
A propaganda arm of the GOP.
Propaganda.
So do you think that there's some acknowledgement now about where they went wrong and that we'll move toward a world where Democratic politicians, Democratic elected officials are going to embrace independent media, recognizing that we need them to close the gap, the asymmetry that exists in our media ecosystem?
They will go to the establishment independent media like Brian Tyler Cohen, what's that? Henry Sesson. Who's the other guy? But they'll go to them. Pod Save America. They might go on Mehdi. Mehdi does ask some tough questions, so he is good at the question asking. But they're gonna go on the establishment independent media, but they're not gonna go on the left wing. They're not gonna go on the savvy sabs, the hard lens medias. We got the workers just started up outside, so I'll try to take my sound off while they're talking.
ecosystem.
So I think you answered your own question. It's the asymmetry is the issue. It's the inability of the left-wing media, which is a good thing, to act as a propaganda arm for a political party in the way that the right does. I mean, the right has a very specific model, right? It is propaganda from Fox.
It's not necessarily a good thing. Everything is propaganda, whether you're left, right, or whatever. But the thing is, just admit that you're left or right wing, center, whatever. Being honest about the propaganda that you spread.
Down to the Daily Wire, down to your independent, YouTubers, it is very much propaganda, and people don't like saying this because they think there's a both sides. No, I have my criticism of MSNBC. I worked there for 3 years. I have my praise for MSNBC. I worked there 3 years. But one thing that annoys me when people go, "Well, the left has MSNBC and the right has Fox," they're not the same thing, right? They're just not. MSNBC does not. Whatever. I know it's going to sound crazy to.
They are the same thing. But MSNBC is not for the left; they're for the Democratic Party. MSNBC is center-right. They're capitalist. They're not anti-capitalist. They're not trying to push communism or socialism. They're not trying to change the system. They're not revolutionary. They are not left-wing. So, but they are propagandists, and they are pushing an agenda just like Fox News. They're just not pushing a left-wing agenda.
Right wingers who may come across your YouTube channel, Brian, but MSNBC does not act as a propaganda arm for the Democratic Party. I know that because I used to work there.
No, they do for the
right?
Democratic Party.
Sean Hannity called Trump every night of his presidency.
He was on stage with him at
Rachel
rallies.
Maddow did not call
stage.
Joe Biden up every night to chat to him and act as a de facto chief of staff.
Totally
I'm not saying they're not pro-democratic. Of course they are. But it's not the same propaganda.
They're not pro-democratic. Of course they are. But they're not pushing propaganda for the Democratic Party. Yes, if you are pro-Democrat or Democratic Party and you do news and you do pro-Democratic Party news, that is called pushing propaganda for the Democratic Party. Now, I don't understand how you just contradicted yourself.
Propaganda, they'll still cover the news. Fox wouldn't even cover Hexas till today. They didn't cover anything.
And then MSNBC and CNN wouldn't cover Hunter Biden's laptop and called it, they called it a lie and Russian misinformation, and they did the Russian plot getting Trump in there and all that stuff. Yes, they do the same exact thing. They do it on different stories, of course, but they do the exact same thing.
To do with Peter Hexon. It's not a news network, so we should stop calling it Fox News. But to go back to your broader question about Democratic politicians.
But they do news.
So there's two things here. Number one, they are to blame partly, as you say, for not propping up a left-wing space and treating the ABCs and
he was on stage with him at rallies.
Rachel Maddow did not call Joe Biden up every night to chat to him and act as a de facto chief of staff. I'm not saying they're not pro-democratic. Of course they are. But it's not the same propaganda. They'll still cover the news. Fox wouldn't even cover Hexas till today. They didn't cover anything to do with Peter Hexon. It's not a news network, so we should stop calling it Fox News. But to go back to your broader question about Democratic politicians. So there's two things here. Number one, they are to blame partly, as you say, for not propping up a left-wing space and treating.
Well, they're not necessarily to blame because they don't want to prop up a left-wing space. It's not their job to prop up a left-wing space because they are not left-wing.
The ABCs and NBCs as, well, that's our message distribution platform. Big mistake. I 100% agree with you on that. And I wouldn't just say Democrats, mainstream Democrats. Bernie, as someone who's criticized the mainstream media, has not supported left-wing media. Cenk Uygur did a great monologue the other day I saw on my social media where he was saying, Bernie's right to come out and say we need a new working class vehicle, we need an alternative to the mainstream Democrat. But he's not done anything to build it up. Bernie Sanders loves mainstream media. He's always on the Sunday shows. Will he do an interview with me? Very rarely, even though I'm probably the only cable host between 2020 and 2023 who would endorse Bernie Sanders, who had a show on cable, never came on my show. So that was a problem. And I think you've had the same problem with a lot of mainstream Democratic Party leaders who you have a huge audience, but they'd much rather go on a Sunday morning show, which has way fewer viewers than you do. So I think that's one problem, is that they just are not smart enough, savvy enough to see the opportunities here. They're very old school, very conventional, very cautious. The one thing I always say about liberals, it's not about the ideology, it's about the mindset of caution that permeates the entire movement. Yes. And then number two, I think there is something we should be proud of, which is one of the reasons they don't just want to...
Liberals, they want incremental change. That's their caution. They don't want to go too fast. They're not revolutionary. They are not left-wing.
Turn up on left independent media is because we're not propaganda arms, right? Even if you are pro-Democratic Party, as you clearly are, you don't...
No left-wing media is pro-Democratic Party. They're not left-wing. It makes no sense to call yourself left-wing and say you're pro-Democratic Party. That you're liberal, you're not left.
deny that. If Robert Menendez came on your show, you would ask him about the gold bars, right?
Correct.
But the equivalent of Robert Menendez turns up on Newsmax, they won't. And I think that's the problem, right? Fundamentally, is that comes back to the reality-based universe. At the end of the day, no matter what our biases are, no matter what MSNBC's politics are, people are...
But it is Democratic propaganda for them to sit here and talk about how they're left-wing and how they're pro-Democratic Party. That's pushing the propaganda that the Democratic Party is left, which also helps the Republicans, because the Democratic parties is hardly different than the Republican Party. And if you're telling regular people that's right-wing and this is left-wing, and it's the same thing, that's why so many regular people in the U.S. are disenfranchised and just stay home and don't vote, because there is no difference in what they see as left and right. Oh, that's the same. Republicans and Democrats are the same. Yes, Republicans and Democrats are the same, but they are not left. They're far different.
On the liberal left are still going to live in a reality-based universe, still going to try and do the basics of journalism, no matter what our personal opinions are. That's gone on the right. I mean, we saw that, and that's not my opinion.
That is insane, man. Like, I wish I did coverage of before Kamala Harris, because these guys, the way they covered Kamala, totally delusional. And the way Brian Tyler Cohen covers the Democratic Party the whole time is totally delusional. He just builds them up and says how great they are, and like, it's just so weird that they don't even hear themselves. They sound almost exactly like Fox News, just on the other side. But not even on the other side. They're not even on the left. They're still on the right. They're just center right rather than far left, like they claim to be. I'm on the left, you know.
That's fact, right? Fox went and settled the Dominion case, proving that they're not a news network.
Mehdi, you had said something that really caught my eye, and that was this idea of a mindset of caution among Democrats. This election was in large part a referendum on I think the authentic.
It's an establishment mindset, a mindset of incremental change. They don't want revolutionary change. They're not left-wing.
And relatability in their politicians. I mean, you have somebody like Trump who objectively has much lower threshold for caution than somebody like Kamala Harris does. And I think that we're seeing that more broadly in the kind of media figures that are promoted on the right versus the media figures that are promoted on the left. There is a degree of like throwing caution to the wind. Of course, that's all on a backdrop of, pushing back against political correctness. And so inherently, you're going to have more of that on the right anyway. But do you think that this election is going to kind of reverse the Democrats' embrace of caution that we've seen, from the days of Hillary Clinton all the way to this campaign, which was probably less willing to go on certain shows because it would pose some risks?
Well, first of all, I'm glad.
Well, it showed with the AOC vote, right? She didn't get that chair position, so there's still establishment. They're going to be establishment. That's what it is.
Glad you dated it back to Hillary Clinton, because Barack Obama was actually a very cautious president, but when he campaigned, he wasn't cautious. I've always found the interesting dichotomy. When you talk about Obama, you have to divide between the campaigner, the candidate Obama, and the president Obama. Obama as a president was super cautious, too cautious for my liking. But as a campaigner, if you remember 2012, he didn't run as an incumbent. He ran almost as an insurgent and portrayed Mitt Romney as the establishment capitalist Bane guy who had to be stopped.
And it's crazy. The health care that he passed was Mitt Romney's health care. He passed what was called Romney Care before he got into office, what Romney was trying to pass. And then they're just so crazy that they act like they're different. They do the same stuff.
Democrats haven't run like that for a long time, as Obama ran in 2008 or even...
That's a lie. Bernie ran like that. If you want to call Bernie a Democrat, when he ran with the Democrats, he ran insurgent. He ran to the left of everyone. He was a radical, and he was talking all that shit. Man.
12. Hillary didn't run like that, and Joe Biden certainly this year, before he pulled out, wasn't running like that, and Kamala Harris, with her Uber brother-in-law, didn't run like that. And I think why I'm pessimistic about whether Democrats are going to embrace kind of boldness and drop some of their caution is twofold. Number one, we've seen no evidence of it since Election Day. We've seen Fluff and all at Qatar and all the team of advisors around Harris doing the Pod Save America interview, doing the Atlantic Ron Brownstein interview, and basically saying we got nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong. We're not contrite. We have no apologies. We do it all the same.
She only had 90
and the worst
days
part of these interviews they've been doing, these postmortems, is they keep going, well, you have to understand, we inherited a really bad situation. The internal polling was really bad. Joe Biden was more unpopular than even you knew. So why the F did you not break with Biden then? As some of us said, it actually makes it even worse for them not breaking with Biden by them now admitting that they knew he was more unpopular than the public knew. Because then the arguments were, oh, well, we can't break with the sitting president. You can if your internal polling is telling you that he is toxic and pulling you down. So
I mean, you can if he's wrong. It doesn't matter what your polling tells you. I mean, I guess it does because you got to win the popularity vote. But if the guy is wrong, then you break with him. I mean, and if the guy is feeble and can't think, you might want to break with him too. That would be a good idea, maybe.
That's number one. I don't see them going bold when even in their postmortems they're not willing to accept what they did wrong. And number two, it's a personnel thing, Brian, right? Until you are able to change the pundit class, the consultant class, and of course the actual members of Congress, you're not going to...
Okay, for the Democratic Party, for either party, that's a lot of people to change. How are we going to change all these people? Why not just get a few very popular Democrats like AOC, get Bernie Sanders, who's an independent, I know, get as many of the squad as you can, and anybody who calls themselves an actual leftist that wants real change, get them to join the Green Party. Now you got a party that already has some people in it, and you get it publicity, you get it now on the news, you get it now being spoken about. Now you guys are all going to get voted back in. You're going to get voted back in the Green Party. Now we got other people in the Green Party. You get a lot of people to join, right? A lot of people to get on the ballot with you for 2026 and 2028. Now when these big names run, people will look down ballot and vote green. And plus leftists, we pay attention to the news. We inform ourselves, right? So we're gonna, once you come to the Green Party and you ignite the left of the people who are already like, oh, I don't care, I'm not gonna vote. Now you ignite them, you get them up. They're gonna go register. They're gonna go vote. And we could do this Green Party thing, but we can't change the Democratic Party. You see what's happening to AOC, and actually I'm going to show you after this what AOC used to say, what you sound like coming into the Green Party, and then we've seen her lately what she's talking about now. But it's just crazy. You can't change the Democratic Party. Not like in a whole shift. You can change a spot or two, but that's not going to work.
To be able to have people willing to take chances. When I look at people like, someone like a Greg Kasar in Austin, I like him not just because I share his politics and because he's a member of the squad. I like AOC not just because she shares my politics. Clearly, we have similar politics. Why I like these kind of politicians is because of their approach to messaging. Their approach to politics is not to take shit from anyone, is to go out there, take risks, test out messages, right?
AOC takes shit from Nancy Pelosi, calling her mama bear and all that, staying in line. Go to the Green Party where you can be an actual leader. You could probably she could run for president on the Green Party ticket next time. I'm sure Jill Stein would step aside for her, have Marianne Williams go over there too, have these two wonderful, beautiful, like been there ladies helping run the party, have Bernie come over there. He's been in office for so long. I probably sound like a broken record with all this now, but man, how great would that be?
That, until you have more politicians willing to do that within the Democratic Party, who aren't just willing to turn up, play it safe, keep their heads down, that's going to be a problem going forward.
Wait. Hurry up.
I think one...
But to me, it's just crazy how much they want to stick with the Democratic Party, and that's all they can think about.
Thing from that interview, from the Pod Save America, Kamala leadership interview, that I think did actually... suggest that there was something that needs to change within the Democratic Party is Quentin Fawkes said that there's a lot of apologizing happening and tiptoeing around certain special interest groups and making sure that they don't say anything that they would then have to, turn around 5 minutes later for and apologize and get on the phone and explain to these people. And that does, I think, present itself or manifest itself in a way where where then the campaigns are a little bit more cautious because, the Democratic Party is a big tent party, but we're also the party that's going to stand up and protect trans people and is going to protect special interest groups. And so I think the way that we're seeing that now is that has manifested in more of a desire to be, or a need.
But Brian, let me push back a bit.
To be careful.
The reason they didn't come out more economically populist is not because of some pressure group. It's probably more, and we can't prove this, but from the reporting, it's people like Tony Harris, her brother-in-law from Uber, who were telling her, tone down the stuff, stop bashing big business, right? And who knows what Pluff was saying. And the problem is, that's what it comes down to. I mean, I hear all this analysis.
It's funny that they would say that, one, Bernie Sanders was either bashing big business or whatever. We were talking about billionaires, millionaires, and all that. But somehow Trump bashes big business in a way, though he is big business and has Elon and all them around the big business around. But, you talk about cleaning the swamp and all these big business people. But, I mean, Kamala just had no message. She didn't know how to do it.
And the Adam Gentleson piece in the New York Times, the groups, the special interest, the pressure groups, the activists. Fundamentally, though, Hillary, Joe, Kamala, they weren't listening to those groups as their number one, sounding board in the morning every day. They were listening to donors. They were listening to pundits. They were listening to consultants.
Right.
And I think that's where the problem lies in the Democratic Party right now, fundamentally.
So then go to a party that doesn't take donor money or big donor money, right? Go to the Green Party. The Green Party talks about ranked choice voting, talks about getting money out of politics. They talk about all the things that these people say that they want, that they claim to be on the left, but ride with the Democrats. Stop. Just go where the car is already pointed in the right direction. They just need people to get in the car.
That said, then, do you think that there is going to be a higher threshold for dissent within the Democratic Party? I know that basically we're in a moment right now where you have a lot of the more moderate Democrats who are saying that progressivism was the problem, and they can point to the fact that Jared Golden won his district and ran far ahead of Kamala. They can point to the fact that Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez ran far ahead of Kamala. But then progressives to the same point can say, look, Kamala ran a campaign where she had Liz Cheney on the campaign trail in more instances than she did embrace progressivism at the end. So what do you think that the Democrats do moving forward in terms of figuring out where they're going to, I guess, whether the party tax right or whether the party tax left?
But that's the problem. I don't think it's about going right or left. I think it's about whether you're going to have a fight or whether you're not going to have a fight. And this is what I've said for a while. Like, I like Congress members like Eric Swalwell.
So you got the far right Republicans, and then you got center right Democrats, and you're going to fight. The center is fighting for non-policy. There is nothing to fight for. You just don't really care. You want to keep it kind of how it is, but not too much. And the right, they want to go back to the past. They want to change taxes. They want to do stuff with immigration. They got things that they say that they want to do. They love religion. They were anti-abortion, all that stuff, right? Like, the only thing that the Democrats are is not necessarily pro-abortion, pro-choice, right? But other than that, there's no real hard line that they stand on. They don't stand on Medicare for all. They don't stand on schooling. They don't stand on up in the minimum wage, nothing like that.
Not because he and I are on the same page ideologically. He's way to my right. But I like Swalwell because he has a fight. Because he knows who the enemy are. He knows how to make the case. You mentioned Jared Golden and Maria Gluesenkamp-Perez. Yeah, I don't share their politics. They're definitely to the right of me. But did they run right-wing campaigns, or did they run populist, authentic campaigns?
Correct. Yeah.
Did they say right to repair in her case, anti-monopoly in his case? All right, this is what we need to be talking about right now. It's not about whether you sign a...
It's so funny, anti-monopoly. If you get so big, like you're like Google, right? They want to break up Google, and Google's like, you don't understand. If you break us up and have all these smaller things, it won't connect and it won't flow like people are used to, and it'll slow down and people will start to get mad, right? If you get so big that you can't fail, the government should just buy you. We should nationalize it, and it should become a utility now. Google should be a utility. Just buy it, government. Those people that work at Google, just keep paying them. Let them keep doing the same exact thing they're doing. You don't got to do nothing different. Even the guy that's running Google, just let him keep running it. Just now it's a government thing. Nobody has to compete with Google too much. You just run through, and then keep your other things. You got DuckDuckGo and all them other ones, right? Y'all can keep doing all that stuff, right? Just keep your engines running. But it's just, why break up if it's so good and it's so big? Why break it up? Just buy it. The government should buy it and have it for the people now. Y'all, you did so good. You're for the. Here's a little black card. There's a little black card. You swipe it. It says government funded. Bam. You can go buy anything you want. Cool.
A tick box of I'm left, I'm right, I do these policies on it. It's about who you're fighting for. Do you have a fighting spirit? Do people know what you stand for?
It's what organization you're fighting for. If you're fighting for capitalism and money to organize your society, you tend to be on the right. You tend to think that the smarter people can run society, Elon Musk, John Galton them. If you care more about the people and you want to organize society through more like thought, not worrying about money, but more worrying about resources and just allocating the resources by the way people see best fit or whatever, that'd be more left wing. You could use AI and all kinds of different science and things like that, right? But it's not, it is a left versus right thing. You can't have money organize a society and not have poor people. You can have a left wing society and at least try to not have poor people. Everyone could be equally poor.
Are you authentic, or are you just a kind of poll tested, focus group tested, bland person who no one thinks is going to fight for them in Washington, D.C.?
Right. I mean, in large part, this was.
And so, yes, the Democrats are those center people who have no real policies, and they don't fight for nobody in D.C. At least Trump says he's going to fight for people, and he kind of does here and there. But at least he has the rhetoric, and he keeps the rhetoric while he's in the presidency. But just the Democrats, they have sometimes rhetoric, but they can't keep it because they're not going to do anything that they say they're going to do. They're not going to, they don't really talk about minimum wage, like I said, but whenever they would say some good stuff, they don't really go for it. They don't push it.
Strangely enough, it did feel like a reference. I mean, you even hear somebody like Cenk come out and say that this election result is the result of.
How you on the left? You've been watching TYT for what, 20 years, and you still can't say Cenk's name?
Of the establishment losing and more of the anti-establishment forces winning. And so moving forward, I mean, Democrats don't generally nominate for their party standard bearer somebody who is anti-establishment, because by saying we have to protect our institutions, we have to protect our democracy, for so many people out there for whom democracy and our institutions isn't working, that is not the message they want to hear. That is the message that's going to push them away. And so how do we take that into account in our candidates moving forward for a party that, in one wing, wants somebody like Joe Biden, who is as establishment as it gets. He's been in politics for 50 years. But by that same token, we're missing out on a broad swath of people for whom the establishment and democracy and our institutions is actually the polar opposite of what they're looking for. And some.
So this is what's wrong with the left-wing media. He's not left-wing. All they can see is the Democratic Party, right? That's it. It's just the Democrats. But if we had a true left-wing media, especially after this Trump win, and they're all sad and this and that, they should have all called their local Green Party. They should have all called Jill Stein. They should have called and said, hey, send all your Green Party candidates. I want to have a Friday Green show or a Tuesday Green show, whatever. And have their candidates come on the show once a week and try to cycle them through all the different shows, right? Jill Stein, Hit the Ground, all the shows. Marianne Williamson, she's going for this DNC chair. Go to the Green Party. Hit the ground. Just start doing the shows. You guys need to be pushing actual left-wing stuff. You guys need to be pushing actual left-wing stuff. You guys aren't. You guys call yourself the left, and you're just giving yourself to the right. Like, if you're going to push center politics that no one's going to want, only a few people, then you're really only helping the right.
Somebody that and something that they won't pull the lever for in the ballot box.
I think you put your finger on it.
Right,
where
they won't pull the lever for
defending democracy in abstract is fine, but when you're defending institutions that people hate for good reason in many cases, nobody wants to go to the mat for the Senate, right? Like, it's just right. No. And the polling shows the American public are not happy with the state of democracy in this country, not just in terms of Trump undermining democracy, but how democracy works itself. Campaign finance reform, money in politics, all of this stuff, minority rule, gerrymandering, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, during the campaign, one of the big mistakes, and people are going to laugh at me because it sounds so niche, but I actually think it was symbolic. First, they buried Tim Walz, who I thought was a great addition to the team. I preferred him over Shapiro, but now it's fashionable to say, well, he cost our votes. Actually, I think they wasted Walz, right? They picked him and then they silenced him. He was doing a great job with the weird attacks when they were polling highly, and then suddenly they stopped saying.
I think that he lied about his service stuff, because I thought Waltz was pretty good at first, but his stories were off, right? And you can't be lying. I mean, obviously Trump does, and you can lie, but you can't be lying about going to war and your guns of war and stuff like that.
Thing weird, and they put Waltz, put him under a blanket and hid him away. And then when he does come out and go, you know what, we should get rid of the Electoral College. Hugely popular idea with the American public across the board. Republicans and Democrats don't like the Electoral College. The Harris team disowned it, slapped him down, and said, no, he wasn't speaking for us. So there's just an example of one way where you talk about institutions. Nobody likes the Electoral College. Democrats should not associate themselves with the Electoral College. In terms of the broader point about anti-establishment candidates, you're right to go back. And actually, I would argue, if you take Joe Biden and the COVID election 2020 out of the picture, yeah, you do go back and you see they pick establishment people like Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, and they lose, and Al Gore. And they pick Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, who are Washington outsiders in the eyes of many people, and they win, right? So I do think that, it's correlation, not causation, but I do think there is worth having a conversation about who are the right candidates going forward, given we failed. That's what the Democrats should be asking. We failed with the Hillarys and the Bidens and the Harrises and the Kerrys. Who can we have? I don't know who that person is, by the way. As people are doing horse race stuff, runners and riders for 2028. I don't know who that person is who has that authenticity. Because as much as I think Whitmer and Newsom are solid candidates and Shapiro, and they're all going to be in the mix, I don't think any of them could go on Joe Rogan. If the Joe Rogan test is now the test, people are like, come on.
Oh man, Jill Stein's been on Joe Rogan. She went on the Breakfast Club. She'd go on any podcast.
Harris should have gone on Joe Rogan. I'm glad she didn't go on Joe Rogan.
Man,
it would have been a disaster. From everything we've seen from Harris's performance, she would not have been authentic. She would have not have had answers to basic questions like how you're different to Joe Biden. She would not have been able to connect with his audience. So I'm actually think it's a good thing. For whatever reason, whoever you blame, she didn't go on Rogan. It would have been car crash TV. But the question is, who can go on a Joe Rogan? And I use Joe Rogan more broadly as who can go on shows who speak freely, where you talk in an authentic manner. Why did people love Bernie during the primaries in 16 and 20? Because he spoke in authentic fashion. Who is the Democratic version of John McCain 2000, right? McCain, the maverick image, the bus, the talking to reporters freely without, being controlled by consultants, making corruption and anti-establishment your actual guiding spirit. And I think
the Democrats are all corruption. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to pass the bill to make them not be able to do insider trading. They all get rich on good salaries, but they make millions of dollars and tens of millions of dollars, most of them, off a salary that should make you probably a small multimillionaire after 20, 30 years, right? Like not a 30, 50, 100 millionaire, but they're all corrupt. And that's the problem. They look at the capitalist system, they want to make their money, and they put money over people. They're all right-wing people. They use the capitalist system, thinking it's the way to organize society. Now I want to contrast what Mehdi and Brian were talking about with AOC. I think this is in 2020, and this is going to be the national rational. His name is David Dole. He's kind of left. He calls himself left, but he caught Trump derangement syndrome and moved to the straight Democratic Party for a while. So we'll see if he comes back. But this is an older video, so we won't know from this. This is him still kind of on the left.
We don't have a left party in the United States.
Do not.
The Democratic Party is not a left party.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez joined Ta-Nehisi Coates at MLK Now 2020 for a wide-ranging interview. Now, I want to focus on the aspect of this interview that discussed the Democratic Party. So I have 3 clips here to share with you. This first clip, AOC discusses a failed narrative within the Democratic Party.
Before she gets there, but she knows, right? Mehdi Hasan and Brian Tyler Cohen that whole time are talking about the Democrats, the left, the Democrats, the left. They're not the left. We need to, they need to stop saying that. It makes it so hard for us to build anything because it makes it hard for us to communicate.
This idea that if we are conservative enough and forgettable enough, we can secure permanent majorities, I think that's false.
Right.
And I also think the idea of a permanent majority without delivering change is untenable. And so while I understand Baldwin talked about this, King talked about this, how long do we have to wait? That was literally the title of King's book, Why We Can't Wait. And I think ultimately that argument is understandable on certain issues. I compromised on this because of that. But ultimately, we also have to know what we're willing to lose our seats for. And what we're willing to commit ourselves to.
It's much different now.
Because right now, I think the issue with Congress isn't a lack of planning. I think it's a lack of commitment.
Right.
So this point here is just bang on. You look at the Democratic Party right now. What is the party? I mean, can anybody actually say what the party is? No, because the leadership is saying something different than what politicians like AOC are saying. So there is this lack of commitment, and the lack of commitment is to the American people. There is no commitment to the American people. The commitment that the Democratic Party has is to their big donors.
And so listen to him talking now, and this guy told you to vote for Kamala Harris, that you got to vote for the lesser evil. It's so Trump deranged. But why would you vote for these people? You can describe them like this. Why would you vote for them?
I guess you could say there is a commitment, but the commitment is not to the people at large. And this idea that, if you're conservative enough, then Democrats will win. So you have Barack Obama in 2008 run a very progressive campaign, won with that very progressive campaign. But then once he was in, it was clear that the big donors that helped him get there, like Wall Street, essentially took over. And they moved to the right on practically every economic issue. So you see Obama made the Bush tax cuts permanent, the tax cuts for the rich, he made those permanent. Then you have the grand bargain to cut Social Security and Medicare. Then you have Obamacare, a private insurance-based healthcare system. None of these things are in the best interest of the people. All of these things are done to appease large donors.
Right.
I mean,
none of these things are left wing. All these things are right wing. They're done with money for the thought process. Money is the most important thing in his thought process and all these things.
I mean, especially coming from, a Canadian here, looking at Obamacare, like the idea that Obamacare is anywhere near on the left or progressive, like it's completely absurd. It is guaranteeing private insurance companies customers. That's what Obamacare is. It is not anywhere near left wing or whatever you want to call it, progressive. It's nowhere near that. So, and what happened under those 8 years while Obama moved more and more conservative? They lost over 1,000 seats, statewide races, Congress, the Senate, by moving further and further to the right, more and more conservative on these issues.
Right.
Now, even if that wasn't the case,
vote for the Republican, right?
Even if being conservative actually netted you wins, okay, now what did those wins mean? You won as a conservative Democrat. Now what? Like, politics isn't sports. It's people's lives. So if you win as a conservative, you're not going to be fighting to guarantee everyone health care. You're not going to be fighting to cancel student debt. You're not going to be fighting for a bold plan to combat climate change. So what do those wins mean? They mean nothing.
This is the same dude, this man right here. Look him up talking about Kamala Harris. He pushed that blue no matter who BS for I don't know how long. I had to stop watching supposed left-wing YouTube because these jackfools right here, why vote for the Democrat if they're going to have conservative policies, if they're going to run genocides, if they're going to be Republicans? Why? This mother here.
So to actually help people, you have to commit yourself to the people, to these issues, the issues that AOC is fighting for. Now, let me go to the next clip here where AOC gives her thoughts on the Democratic Party.
In what you said earlier, too, I wanted to go back. to what you said about our left party. We don't have a left party in the United States. The Democratic Party is not a left party. The Democratic Party is a center or center conservative party. We do not advocate for,
She's in the Democratic Party. She is in the Democratic Party, and she's going to tell you they are center, center right, center conservative.
We can't even get a floor vote on Medicare for all. Not.
And when we had a chance, she wouldn't push it. She had a chance to push the floor vote for Medicare for all. I think it was like 2 years after that. And she wouldn't do it. It might have even been that same year.
Not even a floor vote that gets voted down. We can't even get a vote on it. So this is not a left party. There are left members inside the Democratic Party
See,
that are.
If there are any left members in the Democratic Party, let's go to a left-wing party. Go to the Green Party, if y'all want to make it the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, whatever. If it's a different party, let's all just talk. Let's all talk. Let's find something, and then let's join that party and let's push that.
Are working to try to make that shift happen.
It's not gonna happen.
But you're right, it does convey a certain sentiment about true believers. And there are a lot of true believers in that we can capitalism our way out of poverty in the Democratic Party. If anything, that's probably the majority.
Right.
And so there you go, that we can capitalism our way out of poverty. Organizing society through capitalism, through money first. It's not gonna, you can't capitalism your way out of poverty because capitalism relies on poverty. There's always going to be a poverty class in capitalism. If you can envision a system without a poverty class, that'd be more left-wing. We don't want to use money the same way we use it now. We want to organize society. But like, again, these are the type of words you need to be using when you're talking about the Democrats being left. They're not going to capitalism their way out. They want to capitalism their way out, but it can't be done.
And that's an area in which I agree with Dr. King, that assessment is flawed.
So that's a left-wing socialist communist.
100% on point. The Democratic Party is not a left-wing party. You want to tell me this party, led by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and their ties to Wall Street, their ties to the fossil fuel industry still, their ties to private healthcare, insurance companies, big pharma. You want to tell me this party is a left-wing party looking out for the best interests of people? I mean, are you kidding me? So there are elements of the party, or I should say certain politicians like AOC, like Rashida Tlaib, that are more left-wing than the rest of the party is, but they are not in control right now. So they are trying to, at some point, attain control, but at this point, they are not in control. The Democratic Party, at this point in time, is not a left-wing party.
They could go to the Green Party right now and be leaders of the Green Party. I'm sure Jill Stein would still be like the mama bear of there, but I bet she wouldn't even run for president. I bet she would let AOC do it or Marianne Williamson, but let AOC do it or even Rashida Tlaib, anybody. I think Butch Ware. I like Butch Ware. He was a really good candidate to me. But if you want to make history, go AOC and Butch Ware is the VP. But anyway, it doesn't. But you guys could go to the Green Party right now. You're already rock stars, right? Be rock stars and leaders of that party, and then build it. You could build it from the bottom up. With Jesus, it doesn't make any sense. Why are you gonna stay in this party that has its established oligarchy there? Nancy and Schumer, they're not going anywhere. They wouldn't leave the Supreme Court. They stay there till they die. Who's that lady that? In the wheelchair, I forget right offhand, but geez, man, like, it makes no sense to try to stay in the Democratic Party whatsoever. And then, in a couple years, he's going to tell you to vote for Kamala Harris, this dude.
Party. And then AOC goes on to mention MLK there briefly. It's amazing. Every year, MLK comes up. Everyone puts their love onto MLK, Republicans, Democrats, yet they conveniently forget how anti-capitalist MLK was. So let me just pull out a few quotes here. This is a list from Common Dreams. They have 11 quotes altogether. But let me just read off these three from MLK. Quote, I imagine you already know that I am much more socialistic in my economic theory than capitalistic. Capitalism started out with a noble and high motive, but like most human systems, it fell victim to the very thing it was revolting against. So today, capitalism has outlived its usefulness. Quote, in a sense, you could say we're involved in the class struggle. And the third one here, quote, and one day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million poor people in America? And when you begin to ask that question, you are raising questions about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. When you ask that question, you begin to question the capitalistic economy. And I'm simply saying that more and more, we've got to begin to ask questions about the whole society. So,
talking about.
This is who MLK was.
They don't like
and this is conveniently forgotten when politicians, the media discuss him. Now, let's go to the last clip here. I guess this is sort of the natural clip or the natural question to ask.
A lot of people ask us, what's the difference between...
Sort of the natural clip or the natural question to ask AOC. If she has this issue with the Democratic Party, which is legitimate, then why did she join the Democratic Party?
I mean, you obviously made a decision, you know, when you decided to run, to work within the Democratic Party. So what are the structural, and you said earlier in another, country, you and Joe Biden would obviously not, be in the same party. What are the structural conditions that makes it so somebody like you actually has to work within the party and not, within, a party that maybe would adhere more to, that would be a legit left party?
Yeah, well, first of all, in many other democracies in the world, they have a parliamentary democracy where where there are many parties and you build coalitions between parties to have a governing coalition. In the United States, we have a two-party system. I think it's a system that has a vote of little confidence in the electorate when you see that the largest plurality of voters are independent or not party affiliated.
But you got to understand, slave owners made this system and they made it this way on purpose. They made our Constitution the way they made it on purpose so that the elite could keep power. Only rich land-owning white men could vote at one time, right? They had all the power and they slowly let other people get rights while still just maintaining the power. You don't really have your full rights if you don't have any money. A homeless person got the right to bear arms. Ain't got no money to buy a gun. Homeless person has a right to health care. They got a right to housing. Is it a right or an ability, whatever, but they don't have the money to go get it, right? So
that tells you that there's a certain lack of personal identification. I think when you look at multi-party systems, because there are more parties, it allows people the opportunity to actually personally identify with a political party, in which case it becomes more of an agent of structural change. A lot of people who advocate for kind of a two-party duopoly in the United States says, oh, well, the coalition's built in, so you don't have to do all that work. But the problem is that you don't always know what your party stands for, and you kind of find out every cycle. And I think that is an issue in the Democratic Party. Just yesterday, the New York Times endorsed two candidates.
Right.
What is that?
Who don't agree at all, like who actually
right, and it's like, well, what is the Democratic Party if we can't? And they're two candidates that are very different, very different, and so I think it kind of serves to cloud political consciousness in the United States,
and also evidently voted for one that's not running anymore. He was like number 3.
Right.
So I enjoyed that dig at the New York Times at the end there. I mean, if you didn't see, they endorsed both Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar.
There you go.
Where, on policy, they are very different. Even still, there was so much wrong with the New York Times analysis and their entire endorsement process and the break. It's something that...
So that is a little bit of left versus right. You got Mehdi, Hasan, and Brian Tyler Cohen. So they're talking about Fox propaganda. They were just spitting straight propaganda. They were spitting straight fire propaganda, right? Talking about the Democratic Party, trying to make the Democratic Party seem like it's the left. It's the representative of the left in the U.S. It is not. the right wants to say that. The Democrats kind of say that, but they know they're not, and they don't even want to be the left. Bernie Sanders came in, he was kind of scared to talk about democratic socialism and social democracy and what it is, all rah rah. It's BS, man. Like, we need to open our Overton window. We need to open our minds. Just open your mind to hear things, to understand what communism, leftism is, what socialism is. We know what capitalism is. Look around. Does it suck? Yeah. Do the kids, does the Gen Z, Gen X, whatever, like the 40 unders, the 45 unders, do they have houses? Has people been buying homes and then passing on generational wealth like they did from the 30s, right after the Depression, and what he did, the New Deal, JFK, FDR does the New Deal, right? And so from then to, I think it was Nixon in the 70s, started dropping the tax rate, then Reagan dropped it real big. That's when we had the more leftist, more socialist type economy, more communist type economy. We were taxing the wealthy. The CEO only made 20 to 30, maybe 40 times the bottom worker. Now they make 1,000 times, hundreds and hundreds to 1,000 times, to even way more, like even unmeasurably now when you talk about like Elon Musk and them. So do you want to set up your economy right wing through money, or left wing through, basically it'd be like through mathematical calculations and stuff. We figure stuff out, have people vote for what they want, and then distribute stuff. It's basically a distribution problem. That's all it is. But again, keep upping your knowledge, right, from across the spectrum.